You will always top your woods if you keep doing this. I've had a lot of comments recently from all my social media channels looking for tips and drills to help them stop topping their woods from the fairways and start to see that centre strike and feel that centre strike more often to make things much easier for them when it comes to playing more out on the golf course. This is a very annoying habit that a lot of golfers have the tendency to do, and it's for two main reasons. So once they get to the top of the swing, they'll pull down with the arms like so and force the head to stay watching the golf ball, and they force the head to come down at the golf ball. Now let me explain. So as I mentioned, when golfers swing to the very top and they try and physically hit the golf ball, they tend to keep the head down, which forces their arms to pull down with it in this position here. And you can see that my spine angle starts to drop lower towards the golf ball. So as you can imagine, if I stay in this position here, I'm gonna hit the ground massively before the golf ball. And we don't want to do this. So what do we do in our golf swings? We automatically go, nope, I am recovering from this. From this position here, we start to lift upwards with our spine angle, continuing to keep our head down and then top the shots. And when it comes to hitting those top shots, lifting up, as I mentioned, last minute to recover from this downward motion that we're getting in the swing, it has a tendency to hit this part of the club face here on a 3-wood or any sort of wood, 4-wood, 7-wood, whatever it may be, and it is the leading edge. So in order for us to change this, we've got to think of the complete opposite in the downswing. Rather than focusing on trying to keep our head down and lowering our spine angle like this and then tilting upwards last minute, we want to be looking at a drill that's going to help you maintain this spine angle that you get in your posture at setup throughout to the backswing stage, but mainly in the downswing stage. So we do really well to rotate into this position here, but then from here we dip and then we lift upwards. We want to see if we can maintain that spine angle and basically get it to twist around its axis from setup position. So what I'm going to get you to do is I'm going to get you to take the club away for now and put your hands across your shoulders like so in your posture, as if you were to hit the golf ball. You're going to swing all the way up to the top as normal. When you're in this position here, the idea is that we're trying to maintain the spine angle on the way through, and you can see that in order for me to do this action correctly, the first thought I gather to start this downswing stage is from the lead hip. The lead hip is the key to allowing you to maintain this spine angle. You can see there as well, when I do this, I get a little bit of what we call separation between the lower and upper body to kick things off, and that's going to naturally happen. That's going to help us do a couple of things which I'm going to dive into later on in the video. From here we can turn this left hip. We're trying to turn this left hip away from the golf ball, and you can see there as I start to make my way through to finish, that spine angle has been maintained. We've not lowered it and we've not lifted upwards either. The idea is that if I was to take my left hand and put it on my left hip, I'm pulling it away from the golf ball as opposed to seeing it go towards the target. And when we go towards the target, we've got to be careful with this, because then that changes that spine angle again. So we're just trying to encourage that left hip to fire away from the golf ball, and that's the first drill I'm going to give you just to help you maintain that spine angle and stop seeing this dip in the spine angle on the downswing. So moving on to the second drill. So the second thing is allowing the head to rotate properly in the golf swing. So as I mentioned earlier, once we get to the top of the swing, as this spine angle dips, our head lowers and we're really forcing ourselves to keep our eye on the golf ball. So when we dip our head, it causes us to get that steeper approach, and then we have to lift up. So in order for us to stop this and change this for good and allow for a much fluent rotation, we want to see that head following the spine angle, the spine axis, all the way through to the finished position facing towards the target, as opposed to seeing this action going on here. We want to see a little bit more of this action here, where we're allowing that head to naturally tilt and rotate and moving upwards towards the target in a way that's going to help us give ourselves more room to make contact. So to do this, we're going to be bringing in a very, very simple drill, adding on to the first drill that we did basically. So hands across the shoulders again, up to the top of the swing. We're feeling that that left hip, the lead hip for right-handed golfers, the left hip is going to be turning out the way towards the wall behind us. But then we want to try and do something with the lead shoulder as well, the left shoulder for right-handed golfers. We're thinking from here, that lead shoulder is going to tilt upwards. And when we get this lead shoulder to tilt upwards, you can see what that does to my head. It forces my head to naturally start to lift upwards in this motion here, which is going to make things so much easier then to present the club to the ball at the middle of the club face. Got hands across the chest to the top of the swing, lead hip goes out the way, lead shoulder tilts upwards towards the target. And you can see there now, as I continue this motion, my head wants to naturally rotate along with the spine angle around this twisting motion here, as opposed to seeing it dip up and down. So we've sorted out the spine angle, we've sorted out how we can get that head to naturally rotate through the shot with the spine angle to help improve that strike, but there's one thing we're missing. One thing in particular that I mentioned at the very start of the video. As we make our way to the top of the swing with the woods, and this could probably happen with every single club in the bag, so take this on board as well and give us a try of irons. But as you make your way here, when we get this action here, the spine angle lowers, the head lowers, we also get that pulling effect from the arms to begin the downswing. So obviously we've got that lead hip started the downswing now and getting that out the way just to encourage the swing sequence to start from the lower body as opposed to the upper body, but we're still seeing this and getting this pulling effect in the golf swing, and that can cause two things. One thing in particular that's going to cause is that steeper angle of approach into the golf ball. And you can also see here the leading edge of that club face, this part here that I mentioned earlier as well, is pointing directly to the ground. It's vertical to the ground, and that encourages my wrist angle to get in what we call extension. And we get an extended wrist angle here. You can see how much it changes. I'm going to place it here so you can see this. You can see how much it changes the club face. There's nice and square, and now that's very open. So when we get that in this position here, club face is massively open with that steep angle of attack. What are we going to have to do? We're going to have to jump out of spine angle and try and recover from this and sort of flick it to see if we can get it anywhere on the fairway. So in order for us to change this final thing, we want to be encouraging the opposite effect in the downswing. We want to see that shallower angle of attack. We've got that body beginning to rotate more in the correct way to help improve the ball striking, but we also want to ensure that we're bringing the club on the correct approach into the ball, also seeing that club face more square, because what's the point in improving the strike if you're not going to get straighter golf shots? So what I'm going to add in here is the motorbike drill. And what I wanted to think is, in order to rev a motorbike, what would you do with your wrist? You would do this action, right? You would do this action. So I want you to take your trail arm away from you and encourage the sensation from your lead arm. So we've worked on the lead hip, we've worked on the lead shoulder, now the lead arm, wrist and hand. And in order for us to rev that bike, we've got to do this action here. And what are we doing there? We are getting more flexion. We are getting the feeling and developing that understanding of what it feels like to bow that wrist during the downswing phase. In order for us to naturally do this and to see better results much sooner, because it's quite an awkward thing to implement at first, we want to be encouraging our arms to be very relaxed at the top of the swing. We want to get that lead arm revving that motorbike as soon as we start that downswing. And when we do this, rather than seeing that pulling effect here and getting that extension in that lead wrist, if we can get more flexion, that's just going to make things so much easier to shallow out that approach. You can see that the difference that's just made from me going from this angle here and getting that extension into this angle here and getting that shallower approach. The club head staying sort of behind me more in the downswing phase. Those are the three things that you want to be going and working on. And as a bonus tip, I'd highly recommend committing to the shot and trusting that it's just going to work, because a lot of golfers go out on the golf course and they can do these three things no problem. The hardest thing to master is taking this out onto the golf course and trusting that if you do those three things right, it will work every single time. But that's where you're going to see the biggest changes and improvements in your golf game. So go ahead, give us a try, comment down below what you would like to see next.